Bottom line, though, I guess, Senator, is it ever appropriate to make campaign content at military grave sites?
He didn't take campaign photos there. These families, Gold Star families, whose children died because of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris's incompetence, invited him to the cemetery. And they asked him to take those photos because, as they told me yesterday, when I spoke to Kelly Barnett and Darren Hoover, the parents of Taylor Hoover, who has Arkansas ties, they don't get to go to the beach on Labor Day. They don't get to have barbecues. This is their one chance to have a memory of their children, to commemorate their service and to honor their sacrifice. They wanted President Trump there. They wanted to take those photos.
That's Republican Senator Tom Cotton shutting down pretend journalist Kristen Welker on Meet the Press for regurgitating hollow Democrat attacks on President Trump. Welcome to Nerk News. I'm Nerkish. And the same people who underplayed Biden checking his watch multiple times during a ceremony for 13 fallen servicemen who were killed in 2021 are now clutching their pearls and pretending that Trump visiting Arlington Cemetery is deeply offensive and political.
You know who the families also invited? Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. Where were they? Joe Biden was sitting at a beach. Kamala Harris was sitting at her mansion in Washington, D.C. She was 4 miles away, 10 minutes. She could have gone to the cemetery and honored the sacrifice of those young men and women. But she hasn't. She never has spoken to them or taken a meeting with them.
Well, they did meet with them during the dignified transfer. They were with them at the dignified transfer.
Her and Joe Biden's incompetence, those 13 Americans were killed in Afghanistan.
You know, I love how deadpan and serious Tom Cotton is whenever he goes on one of these shows. He doesn't do any of that fake smiling or laughing. Whenever one of these hacks lies or suggests Republicans are monsters, he's fully locked and loaded and ready to shut them down the moment they push some politically biased BS. I mean, not only did Welker once again overlook Biden's infamous watch-checking incident, she lied and suggested that Harris met with the families as well, which must be why she was so quick to change the subject to one of Democrats' other favorite talking points, the life issue.
But let's stick with Donald Trump. His big announcement on IVF this week. He said Thursday he wants the government to pay for or force insurance companies to cover IVF. Is that something you would support, Senator?
Well, all Republicans, to my knowledge, support IVF in the Congress, and there's no state that prohibits or regulates IVF in a way that makes it inaccessible. It is expensive for many couples. I understand that. So it's something I'm open to, that most Republicans would be open to. I think we'd have to evaluate the fiscal impact, whether the taxpayer can afford to pay for this, what impact it would have on premiums. But in principle, supporting couples who are trying to use IVF or other fertility treatments, I don't think is something that's controversial at all.
Well, 2 months ago, you voted against a Senate bill that would have protected and expand IVF access, and it would have mandated that some coverage was covered by health insurance plans. If that bill came back to the floor, would you now support it? Is that what you're saying?
You mean Chuck Schumer's ridiculous messaging bill?
So no.
That requires fertility treatment for men who think they're women? That was slapped together in a summer in which he slapped together a bunch of other bills.
It's a bill that also would have protected and expanded IVF
Chuck
access.
Schumer has spent all summer. Chuck Schumer's been all summer long slapping together ridiculous bills that he thinks are going to help his liberal incumbent senators face off in their re-elections.
Just very quickly, do you know where this money would come from to cover IVF? Because in 2022, some $8 billion were paid by.
Well, no, again, that's why I say we'd have to evaluate any specific legislation.
So you wouldn't support taxpayer dollars.
I'd have to evaluate any specific legislation as I would on any legislation.
So you're still undecided on where you stand on this government-funded IVF plan?
Well, I certainly support couples having access to IVF, and it's not even a controversial issue in any of the 50 states.
It's a little amusing how Welker is acting flummoxed by Trump's position to let the states decide this issue, as if it's so radical and difficult to understand in American politics. Personally, I would prefer him to be more hardline on it. But given how brainwashed and obsessed liberal women seem to be with it, I understand the rationale for a more incremental approach. Regardless, Cotton did an excellent job during this interview. Welker got zero narrative engineering value from any of the liberal talking points she desperately ran through, and the only thing that was revealed during this whole thing was how pathetically biased these pretend journalists are. But let me know what you think. Was Trump being political by honoring fallen servicemen? Let me know in the comments, and if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel. That stuff really does help us out. Until then, this has been Nerk News. Thanks for watching. Bye!